Hello. I've been thinking a lot about that video I made about the BBC, and of course, as I have been thinking about it more, I've remembered more. And I just wanted to make another video to sort of round out what I was talking about in the previous one. And this was all sparked by a comment from one of my new subscribers. Welcome all, by the way. It was something like, burn the BBC down. And my answer to that was, look, you can't burn shit. You can't set light to it. And then I thought, but actually I have a lot to do with horses, and I do know that what does happen to shit is that when it's all piled up in one place, you get heat build up and finally it bursts into flames all on its own. And it looks like that's what's happening here. And you know, that's the sad thing about it. It doesn't need to be this way. I just want to tell you my take on how the BBC got into this mess. The thing is, it was supposed to be neutral. It was never as neutral as all that. George Orwell based his institution, the Ministry of Truth, on his experiences with the BBC. Because even then it was a place full of long corridors and rooms where people went through all sorts of hell trying to deal with producers. I once took a stack of scripts to a producer for a show, and he took the whole stack, and one by one, there was about 10 of them, one by one, he threw each script into the waste paper basket, and at each throw he was saying stuff like, boring, that's no good, where did you learn to write, and that sort of thing. But the thing was, he hadn't read any of them. He'd just taken the thing and done that. I think he must have had instructions from the previous producer, the one I'd been talking about in the last video, and they were trying to get me to walk out on my own, and I didn't. I did end up, when I left his office, going into the toilet. I was shaking like a leaf, and I cried my eyes out. Well, that's what any good feminist would do, you know, isn't it? Go and hide in the toilets and bawl like a baby. When I came out, I realised I'd actually gone into the men's toilets. And you know what? It was too many years before I could have made the excuse of saying I identified as a man. But fortunately, no one turned up. So when I got back to the writer's room, I got back there with my dignity intact. The thing is, this sort of thing happens all the time in the BBC, not just to me. It's just a bully's paradise there. And it's a strain on everyone, not just lowly writers. In my innocence at the time, I didn't realise that one of my producers, she happened to have quite pale blue eyes, and she had pupils that you could hardly see. They were like tiny pinpricks. I mean, it looked really weird. And I didn't realise till much, much later that this is a side effect of some sort of opiate. Heroin, I assume. And everybody else must have known about that, but still, she was producing the shows, so she could be shooting up or snorting or whatever. They didn't care. And that's the point, isn't it? But it's always been a bully's paradise. But it hasn't always been a communist disaster area. And I just want to point out how that happened. You see, the BBC advertises jobs vacant in only 2 organs. One of them is Ariel, the in-house magazine, and the other one is in the Guardian newspaper. It doesn't advertise anywhere else. Some of you may be familiar with the Guardian. Suffice it to say, if you don't, that Owen Jones is one of their most favoured writers. Now, if you want a job in the BBC as a floor sweeper, an editor, a reporter, an office assistant, or the person who refills the coffee machine. You'll have to find the job in The Guardian. I have been told, I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I have been told that The Guardian would go bankrupt if it didn't have the advertising revenue from the BBC, because they advertise thousands of jobs and it's very good rates, apparently. So if you want a job at the BBC and you're not already there, you have to buy a copy of The Guardian, or several copies, and naturally only Guardian readers will buy copies regularly. And if you aren't a Guardian reader, well, at the very least you'll be exposed to The Guardian opinions on your regular trawl through it for jobs. So, of course, bit by bit, the intake of employees has narrowed itself down to the sort of people who could stand reading The Guardian all the time. And naturally, such people, when they get to the sort of rank where they are choosing other people, they will choose employees of a like mind to themselves. The way to save the BBC then is simple. Stop them from advertising jobs in The Guardian. Make them advertising newspapers like The Sun and the Daily Mail and the Telegraph on some sort of a rotating system. That's all they need to do. And that would save. You see, I still, despite all, I still believe in a national broadcaster that doesn't have to depend on advertising. Just think of the programmes that the BBC has done, some of them very risky, and they couldn't take those risks if they had commercial backers. Stuff like Hello, Hello, absolutely fabulous. Are You Being Served? Monty Python, The Young Ones, Drop the Dead Donkey, Fawlty Towers. Well, Alan Partridge, Keeping Up Appearances, that was my mother's favourite. I didn't like it that much. It Ain't Half Hot, Mum. One Foot in the Grave. Red Dwarf, that was my favourite. Steptoe and Son. All of it. The Office. Yeah, these are all really good shows. But you do notice they're not that recent. The Office is the most recent of them all. They've lost that idea that they can take risks, because they're all worried now about watching each other, all Guardian readers not stepping out of line. Anyway, that's it. They need to advertise outside in the great wide world. We don't need to shut the BBC down. It's a cesspit right now. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's it. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe, and if you wish to donate, click the Subscribe Star link, where you can make a one-off payment or set up a regular contribution, or I have a PayPal account at grannyopteryx@gmail.com. Till next time.